In essence, by a stroke of a pen, and against the clear intent of bipartisan majorities of the American people, Congress and the law itself, President Obama's administration has attempted to undo welfare reform, one of the signature bipartisan policy achievements of the last 20 years. Nearly 16 years ago, on August 22, 1996, after 2 vetoes, then President Clinton finally signed the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, otherwise known as welfare reform. This landmark legislation, the product of a Republican-controlled Congress, ended the entitlement to welfare and replaced it with a block grant to the states. The block grant, known as the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF, provided states with unprecedented control over welfare programs in exchange for meeting federal work standards. Since the enactment of welfare reform, welfare caseloads have dropped dramatically. Families receiving welfare have dropped by nearly 60%. People have got jobs, people who never had jobs before, for generations, and gained the self-esteem from working. Welfare reform remains popular and is often cited as the most significant domestic policy accomplishment in decades. The core philosophy behind welfare reform is the emphasis on work and moving from dependency to self-sufficiency. Now, despite the popularity of welfare reform, programs created under TANF have languished. As more states were able to get credit towards the federal work requirement based on the declining caseloads, TANF increasingly became less of a welfare-to-work program and more of a funding stream to prop up other social programs. In 2005, the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office reported that several states listed as part of their definition of a, quote, federal work activity, unquote, under TANF, some of the following: bed rest, 2, personal care activities, 3, massage, 4, exercise, 5, journaling, 6, motivational reading, 7, smoking cessation, 8, weight loss promotion, 9, participating in parent-teacher meetings, 10, helping a friend or relative with household tasks and errands. My gosh. The Deficit Reduction Act of 2005, which then Senator Barack Obama opposed, attempted to refocus state efforts on getting individuals engaged in work and closing these work activity loopholes. The funding authority for TANF expired at the end of fiscal year 2010. The Obama administration has not proposed a comprehensive reauthorization of TANF, and TANF has continued under a series of stopgap extensions. Late last week, the Obama administration quietly released, quote, guidance, unquote, to the states, informing them that the administration had granted itself authority to waive work requirements in TANF, quote, including definitions of work activities and engagement, specified limitations, verification procedures, and the calculation of participation rates, unquote. In the 16 years since the creation of the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, no administration has concluded that they have the authority to waive the TANF work requirements. The provision in the Social Security Act, Section 1115, which allows certain waivers, does not cite the section of law that includes the TANF work requirements. In an attempt to justify their waiver scheme, the Obama administration cites a reference in Section 1115 to a provision dealing with a TANF state plan. Because the state plan section refers to the work requirements, according to the Obama administration, this allows them to waive TANF work requirements. Now, Mr. President, if this sketchy logic is allowed to stand, a case could be made that there is virtually no domestic social program whose rules and protections cannot be waived. For example, since Medicaid is referred to in Section 1115, And since the foster care programs are referred to the Medicaid statute, a case could be made that under the administration's sketchy logic, the protections for children in foster care could be waived. This executive overreach is a very serious matter with major long-range implications. The Obama administration, through this waiver scheme, is attempting to unilaterally disarm the legislative branch of the government and accomplish by executive fiat what they never even attempted to do through the regular legislative process. Mr. President, this administration has consistently demonstrated a flagrant disregard for the constitutionally mandated co-equal branch of government known as the legislative branch. This is but the latest in a series of decisions that demonstrate the administration's sheer arrogance in attempting to bypass Congress without legal warrant. And to be clear, disregard of Congress's power to make the laws under which we live is disregard for the American people. The essence of Republican governance is that the American people have a say in what the laws are. That say comes through their elected representatives, not through some unelected bureaucrat putting out guidance that is in flat contradiction to the wishes of the people's representatives and the clear text of the law that is supposedly being enforced. Ours is a government of laws, not of men. But with this action, the administration has shown that it will not let the constitutional prerogatives of Congress or the actual intent of the law stand in the way of their policy goals. We just cannot let this stand. I, for one, have no intention of letting this stand. Let me just say, when we did the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families bill, one of the most important provisions in that bill was the work activity provision. And literally, because people had to go to work after a certain period of time where we gave them help, we gave them money, we gave them subsidization, and did all the things that were necessary to help them to go to work, literally about 60% to two-thirds of those who had been on welfare, some of them for generations, went to work and gained the self-esteem from those who were supporting themselves. Well, I, for one, have no intention of letting this stand. I will shortly be introducing legislation to halt this risky scheme to gut welfare reform. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stand with me. Nothing less than the constitutional viability of Congress is at stake. I can't imagine if Senator Byrd, who was the majority leader for many years and then became the principal rules person on our Senate floor for most of my Senate service, if he was in this body today and alive, he would be having a fit over this type of arrogance by this administration or any other administration, Republican or Democrat. And he would be standing up for the rights of the Senate. I caution my colleagues on the other side that it's time for them to stand up for the rights of the Senate and the House and this legislative body called the United States Congress. We've got to quit this and quit allowing an out-of-control administration to just do through executive orders that which modifies what really is legislation that has been passed by this branch of government that is supposedly co-equal. Well, I hope that we'll all fight this, and our country will be better off if we do. Mr. President,